Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger. On July 8th, 2021. This is episode 2 of the fantasy series I started last week, which we are going to show some characters that will honor my favorite genre of reading material, which is sword and sorcery, high fantasy, epic fantasy, medieval fantasy, and so on and so on. I mean, I read some mysteries, and I definitely read a lot of horror stories and adventure stories. But in the end of the day, my true love has always stayed to be fantasy. Now, last week we talked about one of the oldest written fantasy for the Anglo-Saxon people, the legend of Beowulf, in which the hero Beowulf slew the monster Grendel with his bare hand and saved the people that were being plagued by this invincible monster. The legend of Beowulf was written somewhere in 700 uh, or in the 7th century or 8th century, and it is today one of the earliest known work of fantasy in for the Anglo-Saxon people. However, it is far from being the earliest or even near being the earliest or among the earliest work of fantasy created by human beings. Far from it. Today we are going to go even further back in time and look at one of the early examples of how great the human mind is when coming up with imaginative heroes and monsters, gods and goddesses, demons and spirits. We are going to go back to 700 BC, a good 1,400 years prior to the legend of Beowulf. Today we are going to look at Greek mythology. I first was exposed to Greek mythology when I was 5 years old. I was very familiar with Greek mythology even before I learned English, before I knew about Canada or the United States or any of the other countries, because my nanny, Maru, would read stories to me before I went to bed every day. And a lot of those stories were stories of Greek mythology, gods, goddesses, heroes, and heroines, and great sacrifices, and massive epic battles. So I think my first exposure to a fantasy started from there, was Greek mythology. Now, there's never been a 6-inch scale line of action figures dedicated to Greek mythology. I'm very specific. I say 6-inch line because there's actually a line of action figures done by the Boss Studio. Uh, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but uh, there actually is a miniature, smaller action figure line that was done by Boss Studio, um, and it's very much centered on part of Greek mythology, the Gorgons and the Minotaurs and Pegasus and stuff like that. However, because it's a much smaller scale than what I collect, I totally have to pass it by because it doesn't fit in with any of my other collection. So it was really sad. So please, if there's any toy maker out there, or if any of you watching this, you're aspiring to be a toy maker, consider this. Uh, it, a lot of those characters wouldn't be copyrighted because they're so old, and there's endless possibilities if you do Greek mythology characters, and they can fit in with a lot of fantasy and medieval and Dungeons and Dragon displays. So I think there's some kind of success over there if someone would take a hand in making some 6-inch or 7-inch scale uh, Greek mythology focused toys. However, even though there's never been an actual series focused on Greek mythology, many companies, many comic books and cartoons and movies have tried to include Greek mythology bits and pieces of the stories and heroes and villains in their storytelling. So today we are going to look at examples of uh, Greek mythology uh, characters from various companies. And those of you that can actually see the screen, you've been staring at this black armored warrior with a flaming sword in his hand. And some of you must be wondering, who the heck is that? Well, this is our first example of a character right out of Greek mythology. This is uh, the god of war, Ares, as depicted by DC Comics, more specifically for the Wonder Woman movie and made by Mattel. Ares here is depicted as a really tall, really strong looking armor in black plated armor, and he got a pair of giant flaming swords in his hand. His head is covered. Ooh, he just tipped over. One thing about this action figure is he doesn't stay standing very well, even if I put him on the action figure display stand. So I'm going to lean him back against the backdrop so he stopped doing that. Um, if you look at his head is covered in a helmet that looks like the skull of a giant beast, making him look really fearsome. If you were to look underneath that helmet, he has a shadowy, blank face under there. So that makes it look like there's nothing inside the helmet. It looks like it's all shadow inside. Really creepy. And he tipped over again. Yeah. Now, those of you that have seen the Wonder Woman movie may be thinking, this is not what Ares looked like in the movie. What's going on here? Well, what happened was when Mattel first got the okay and go ahead to make action figures based on the movie, they were given concept art at an early stage. Back then, this was what the movie producers were thinking for Ares to look like. However, halfway through, they changed the design of Ares, so it's too late for Mattel because they already started producing action figures. So we ended up with this version of Ares, which is based on the early concept art and the one that ended up on the screen and looking very different from this. But it's actually okay because this version looks a lot better than the one they ended up with. This version looks a lot more monstrous and fearsome, and with that big skull helmet, it just has a really creepy, badass vibe to him. If he can stop falling over, I would be very happy. Now, among action figure collectors, many people say Mattel can have never found an idea that they can't do wrong, and that is very true in this Ares action figure. I mean, this is a good-looking, big, uh, cool action figure with giant flaming swords. Okay, he should have been a success, but the execution in the end is bad because he can barely stay standing without falling over. And the reason is his knees are very loose. His upper torso is super heavy, his giant helmet, and his giant chest, they're very heavy. But look at his feet. He has tiny bare feet. He's not even wearing sandals. If you look at his hands, holding this giant sword, his hands are tiny too. So what the heck? Why does the god of war have tiny feet and tiny hands? That's just so weird. You can't actually buy this Ares by himself, by the way. You see, when the Wonder Woman movie came out, I fully intended not to watch it. I was never a fan of Wonder Woman, and I didn't feel that I would enjoy the movie. And since the action figures were produced by Mattel, I was fully intending to pass on the Wonder Woman action figures as well. However, when I found out that if you buy every figure in that series, then you can build the figure of Ares. Well, I kind of had, I kind of told myself I had to do it because I always like mythology influenced action figures characters, and having the God of War on my shelf is just too tempting to pass up. So I bit the bullet and spent more money than I should to track down the entire series of Wonder Woman figures and ended up building, putting Ares together. I still don't care for the rest of the Wonder Woman action figures, but I'm glad that I did what I did because Ares does look pretty good on the shelf. Even if you're not into DC Comics or even if you don't know Greek mythology, just taking this action figure on its own merit is a good looking, solid looking display piece that will stand in very well battling your medieval fantasy heroes uh, for your Dungeons and Dragon display, or even in there with your uh, Lord of the Ring or other medieval fantasy display. Now let's bring a regular sized human figure in for size comparison. This here is Ant-Man from the Ant-Man movie. He is about 6 inches tall, very, relatively speaking, normal sized human being. We stand him right in front of Ares, and we can see he barely come up to Ares' shoulder. So this gives you an idea of how big Ares is. What's very interesting about Ares as uh, a character, as a god, is that he's always trying to cause people to go to war, and he's always getting involved because he likes to go to war. And you would think, being the god of war, Ares would be like, when it comes to the matter of war, he would be like the best. No one should be able to defeat him. But no matter if it's in Marvel comic or DC comic or any other venues or medias, even in the good old Greek mythology, during the Trojan War, whenever Ares decided to get his own hand dirty by going into the battlefield and fighting human warriors, he always end up getting hurt or getting his mortal body destroyed. It's quite ironic that the God of War is actually not that badass when it comes to real battle. Now, talking about being badass, when we talk about Greek mythology, there is one character that is the most well known, most popular, especially in the badass category. His name is Hercules. He is the son of Zeus, just like Ares. However, he's only half god. Hercules' mom was human. So you can say Hercules was Ares' half brother. Now, how badass was Hercules? Well, one of his 12 labors was to kill the Nemean lion. The Nemean lion, just like Grendel in the story of Beowulf, was enchanted so no weapon in the world could hurt it. Hercules just like Beowulf, decided, okay, if I can't kill you with weapons, I'm going to kill you with my bare hand. And he killed the Nemean lion with his bare hand and then peeled off its skin and started to wear its skin around as an armor because the skin is impenetrable, it's enchanted against all kind of weapons. So now Hercules, in addition to being super strong, super fast, now he has this armor that is impenetrable by any weapons in the world. Today I'm going to show you guys a version of Hercules as depicted by Marvel comic. Look at that, very, very muscular specimen. In Marvel comic, Hercules has lived for 4,000 years on Mount Olympus with other gods, and he often get really bored and come down to the human world, and he would meet up with superheroes such as Thor, the Thunder God, and the Incredible Hulk, and they would end up going on various adventures together. Along with Thor and Incredible Hulk, Hercules is one of the three major powerhouses fighting alongside for the forces of good on the superhero team called the Avengers. His strength is said to rival Incredible Hulk, and he is a very skilled hand-to-hand combatant with thousands of years of fighting experiences, and he is a very good archer and wrestler as well. This action figure of Hercules was made by Hasbro in its early days, handling the Marvel Legend property, and it is today one of the figures are in my collection that one of my, I would say, not quite top 20, but if you ask me for my top 40 of my favorite action figure in my collection, Hercules here would be one of them because of the fantastic work they've done on the musculature on this action figure. He is really big and really brawny, but he is not monstrous like the Incredible Hulk. If anything, he's a little bit, well, he's a little bit more like Thor, the Thunder God, and with that huge muscular build, but that still make him look quite graceful and good looking. He's wearing green, a green sash that draped across his shoulder, and a green loincloth skirt combo with straps running all the way up his legs, and he has bracers on his arms and headband around his head. And on his waist, we see that he has a little. I'm not sure what this is. It's a kind of some kind of weapon, like a mallet or a scepter, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if he ever used something like that. So I just leave that on his waist. No idea what that is. His skin is kind of orange, kind of like Donald Trump. And he has gold accents on his bracers, headband, belt, and leg strap. A lot of people complain that this Hercules has a weird looking smile on his face, that looks weird for him to be uh, grinning like a goof charging into battle. But that is really how he's portrayed in Marvel Comic. That is accurate. Because in Marvel Comic, Hercules, he's super strong, he's super fast, and he's super good in battle, but he has the innocence of a child. He is very naive to the ways of men. Heck, there was one instance where his uncle Hades tricked him into being bound to the underworld. Basically, Hades decided he's sick and tired of being the king of the underworld because he can never leave the underworld. So he made out a contract and tricked Hercules into signing it. And Hercules, thinking that this was a contract for his new super movie film, signed the contract without reading and ended up being the king of the underworld, being bound to the underworld for a long time. until his superhero friend finally came to rescue him. That's how ridiculous the character is. He's kind of simple. He's not stupid, but he's a little bit simple. Uh, and so this big goofy grin on his face, I can totally see that happening. His personality, Hercules is the kind of guy that think having a good fight against a giant or a great fist fight against a titan is a lot of fun. So he's going to go into battle with this kind of expression. We're going to bring Ant-Man back into the frame so we get a size comparison of Hercules against a regular human-sized character. Here is Ant-Man again, and as we see, Hercules is about half a head taller, but about twice as wide. Just look at the comparison of those two. One of Hercules' arm is it's actually bigger than Ant-Man's entire leg. Let's turn them around, look at the back, get a comparison shot, how brawny Hercules is compared to Ant-Man when we look at them from the back. Now we also bring Hercules' half-brother Ares back into the frame. Now we have the god of war, who is supposed to be really badass and take a stand with his half-brother, who is one of the most badass person ever created in Greek mythology. Ares, Hercules. Now you can see that Ares is definitely taller than Hercules, but in all other department, Hercules definitely look like he's going to be able to throw Ares around. Especially with this comparison, look at that. Ares' tiny feet against Hercules' giant feet. Isn't that funny? How the weird proportion really show on Ares when you compare his feet against Hercules. And even though Hercules is shorter, his feet is almost twice the size of Ares' tiny feminine feet. Now, what else do Ares and Hercules have in common, other than both of them like to fight? Both of them are probably womanizer, and both of them like to drink a lot. Their father, Zeus, their commonality, where both of them inherit their immense power from. Zeus was the son of one of the elder gods, one of the earlier emperor of gods, and then he deposed his father, rescued his brothers from his father's stomach because Zeus's father liked to eat his own children. Uh, Anyway, it's a very long and convoluted story that has a lot of wars between gods and stuff like that. But suffice to say, Zeus is the lord of all gods. It's a god of lightning, the god of many things, and he is definitely a womanizer. Just like if there's one biggest womanizer in the entire Greek history, Greek mythology, that would be Zeus. So today I'm going to show you guys a version of Zeus as conjured up in the imagination of none other than Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn comic. Here is Zeus, father to Hercules and Ares. One of my older action figures, in fact. This Zeus was made somewhere around 1998, I believe. Interesting take on Zeus. It's not what I would imagine Zeus to look like. I mean, the big long beard and the shaggy long hair, those things match. But the rest of it, I mean, the the weird, what are these hanging on his body? Are these skulls, trophies, bones. I don't know what these are. I don't know why he would be wearing these around. Why is Zeus walking around wearing skulls of children? Are they skulls of children? I don't know. There's some they look weird. Anyway, and he's got this huge helmet with ram's horn on the side. When we take off the helmet, and you can see his super long beard and shaggy long hair. He's also sporting a furry uh, cape on his back. This is soft good, by the way, well, or rubbery anyway. So you can move it out of the way. And you can see he's got some shoulder armor, some uh, spiky Batman style bracer. In his left hand, he's holding a interesting looking staff. In his right hand, he has a impressive looking battle sword. While this is not what I imagine Zeus to look like, uh, it is a good representation of Zeus. I would say that he does look very capable. Uh, However, when I looked at this action figure, when I was exposed to this action figure, my first thought was, why is Zeus looking like some kind of weird barbarian? I mean, he looked to me more like he could be uh, a, a barbaric war chief from Conan the Barbarian than the Lord of Greek gods. Now, because he's a very old action figure, I'm not going to fiddle around with him too much because if he breaks, it's going to be expensive to replace. But look at this. He got this weird animal skull knee pad on his leg. Turn him around so we get a back view. While he is not what I would say a perfect representation of the Lord of God, the father to Hercules and Ares, he is nonetheless a very fun action figure, an oldie but a goodie. Let's bring Ant-Man back again, and we'll get a comparison of Zeus against a normal size human. Again, Zeus is quite burly, quite tall, so he is not quite as broad as Hercules, but he stands about the same height as Hercules, which means he towers over normal human characters like Ant-Man here. And if we get a side profile, we can see that uh, Zeus is sporting quite a serious bit of bulk as well. So um, he definitely has a stature, the bulk, the stature, the uh, the attitude, shall we say, the look, to be the father to our previous two characters. Last but not least, we're going to take another look at a very interesting action figure. Um, this guy actually was involved with Hercules. One of Hercules' 12 labors was he has to tame the guardian to the underworld, which was the three-headed demonic dog, Cerberus. Cerberus was not something or someone that you can fool around with. Even Hades had to walk carefully around Cerberus. Hercules was able to get it done by some means of magic and trickery and stuff like that. I'm going to show you guys a depiction of Cerberus from the Final Fantasy video game. This is Cerberus as depicted in Final Fantasy and made by Kotobukiya. We can see that he has a three head. They look kind of reptilian. This actually looks a little bit more like a dragon than a dog, but I mean he's a dog who guards the entrance to hell. So who's to say he has to look like a normal dog? Look at that super long reptilian tail that is articulated. Look like the tail of a snake, and we can see by profile. This is a really big action figure. This Cerberus is really big. Back then when I bought him, he only cost $22. Now you might have to pay $100 for him on the secondary market. He is a Japanese import and quite quite a well done action figure. I don't say that about Japanese import much, but this Cerberus is quite well done. Just to give you guys a sense of how big he is, here is Ant-Man again, standing, leaning on Cerberus. Look at that. Cerberus is about twice, actually more than twice, as long as Ant-Man is tall. And if we turn them around so they're facing the camera, Cerberus, when standing on all four legs, almost as tall as Ant-Man. Just a massive beast of a demon dog action figure. And all those three head, they kind of rotate. There's articulation in them, and the jaws chomp up and down like that. Uh, Articulation kind of sucks because the knees they don't bend, and they're really loose. This got some really loose articulation, so this is one of those action figures that tend to slump when the weather gets too warm and end up looking really weird. If you like what you see here, if you enjoy these daily videos, then please consider checking out and subscribe to the Johnny Tiger Experience podcast, where we will get more detailed action figure reviews and thoughts, alongside other martial art, fitness tips, uh, story times, and a lot of goodies that you come to expect from these daily videos. You can find the Johnny Tiger Experience podcast on Amazon devices and any podcast platform just by searching for Johnny Tiger Experience. Thank you for checking out today's Toys Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night.